Okay, so we talked on, was it Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about you at the very end of our last session. We kind of really hit something, right? Which was you don't want to be told what to do. I think that was kind of where it started unraveling a little bit. Because I could just get a sense of that even with me. You don't want to be told what to do. And in reality, like when the body's not hungry and you want to eat, you don't want to be told you can't eat. You don't want to be... So anyways, so the goal was that you surrender your choice in the matter, right? It's the body is the guide. You are going to listen and do what you're told. Anyway, so how'd that go?
Well, I've never ever listened to my body as far as, what it's supposed to eat. So I started meditating because I used to, just so I could kind of get, because I told you that, it's hard for me to be honest, and I don't think it's because I don't want to be honest. I think it's just because I'm so out of touch with everything.
Yeah, well, you're in touch with what you want. You're not necessarily in touch with the body.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, anyway, I started meditating, and I was able to, when I started doing it, I realized how much my body hurt. And after that, it was hard for me to, it was because I was struggling with, turning my wheel over because I wanted to eat so badly. And then, so anyway, I did that. And then the next morning I woke up in my diet head, what I call it.
Yep.
And I realized all of a sudden that it was really stressful for me to think about not eating. And then I had this thought that, it's kind of really almost cruel to do that to myself. And I thought, because I was sitting there thinking, I just went back into diet. And then I thought, it's really cruel of me to do that to myself, which is the complete opposite of what, the whole world
totally
tells you. And then at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm just going to be kind to myself. So that's been working. I just keep telling myself I'm going to be kind to myself. And that has helped me just to not diet, not starve myself, and not binge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of like today, I was working and I was feeling stressed because I need to do this procedure, and I really have to figure it out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So I was stressing out because I don't really work well unless I have a deadline or if I have somebody I can bounce off what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't think. I kept going around in my head over and over again. So, and it made me want to eat. Finally, I was just like, okay, Heather, what's the kindest thing you could do? And I thought, well, the kindest thing that I can do for myself is just not to eat because I'm not really hungry and that's just going to make my body hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I can still remember when I was hurting the other, and how my body was hurt, and it feels better when I don't stuff it with food. So, I just was like, well, I mean, there's been plenty of times when you've been eating your brains out and you haven't done any work, so what does it matter now if you can't figure it out? It's not because you don't want to work, it's because you can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm feeling better, and so I actually took a nap. I was going to eat so I could eat my way through the day, and then I didn't eat, and I took a nap, and now I'm feeling better, and now I'm feeling like I can go back and sit down at my computer and figure it out. So I'm not working my scheduled hours, but I'm working.
Yeah.
So, I don't feel like I've, anyway, so that's
This sounds awesome. This sounds awesome. I love that. I love that you simplified it for yourself into just being kind. And it's not like enabling, right? Because you know, the moment you wanted to eat, you were like, okay, so how would I be kind? And your answer wasn't, well, go let yourself eat then, because you can't figure this out. Your answer was, well, if you're kind, you wouldn't eat because you're not hungry, and that would hurt the body. That's not kind to the body.
Yeah.
It feels like crap. Yes, I love that. I really do. I can appreciate that. I want to make sure that you really do connect, though, with what we talked about. Letting the body tell you when and how much to eat. You know, when you think about, I'm going to enforce a diet, are you letting the body tell you, or are you forcing the body to not eat?
No, because when like yesterday, I wanted to not eat, but I was hungry, and so.
Well, that's the body telling you what to.
Yeah, at that moment, it was like, it would be cruel for me not to eat, because it's just causing me stress.
Yes, totally, because you're actually hungry. Yep. And then when you do eat, to be conscious around, okay, well, I know I'm hungry. Well, how much does the body need? Well, does it need to be in pain? Does it need so much food that you're in pain? How much does it really need? Maybe just enough for that feeling to go away, that feeling of hunger to go away. And then if that hunger sense comes back, you can get more food. It's not like you can't have food the rest of the day. You know, it kind of takes the stress out of it.
Yeah, it's a different way of. I didn't realize how hard on myself I was. I didn't realize how mean I am to myself, and
cruel.
You know, yeah, cruel.
It's really cruelty.
But I never thought of it as cruelty, because I never questioned what I was taught. And
no, it's cruelty. And you can see it now. It's like no human being should be starved just to, like, even your physical and psychological well-being. When you think about it, food is such a vital part of being alive and just sustaining life. So it would be cruel to even suggest that someone should starve themselves. For what?
I never really made that connection, because I never, I think for me, it's like I have to really tune in to learn how to know what's best for me, instead of, I always listen to other people tell me what's best for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I did the same thing. I did the same thing. And that you become their slave. It's like, I have no voice, but they do. They get to have a voice. And I'm just going to accommodate to that, but I don't have a voice. And you kind of lose yourself when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's weird how I didn't realize, I didn't realize I had, like you were talking about, I guess you called it gaslighting, which I had no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about me manipulating myself, and I never thought of myself as being cruel. I never thought I was mean to myself. I thought I deserved whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I deserved to be punished because I wasn't,
Stockholm
and all
syndrome.
that crap.
So that is, you're describing women that have like battered wife syndrome or Stockholm syndrome. The cruelty they believe they deserve and earn it. And so that's oftentimes why they continue to live in such toxic, abusive relationships, because the abusiveness, they truly think on some level they deserve it. Right? You basically said that verbatim, like it was textbook. That's why I think this is so similar to a syndrome. It's like a battered wife syndrome, but you don't, it's like Stockholm, more like Stockholm syndrome. It's when you're held hostage and you begin to have affection for your abuser or your captor. And where this is a little different is there is no abuser or captor but yourself and your beliefs, right? So what was holding you hostage is your beliefs that you are a terrible, horrible person, right? And you're...
Yeah, or not. I mean, it's a little more than that. Like, I don't know how much of I project my view of myself onto the world. I really thought that I didn't belong in the world because bad people don't belong.
Mm-hmm. That's the belief. So that's what's holding you hostage, that belief right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, there are overweight people that have husbands and children and live lives. I mean, one of my closest friends has been married 5 times, and she has 4 children. And so it's not like...
Yeah, but when you hold yourself to it, it's like, well, they deserve love and kids and affection, but I don't.
Right.
Right. And that's why it becomes, that's like you're holding yourself hostage. That means you're held captive. Like you can't live, you can't go out, you can't do anything. And eventually, as you relate to food the way you do, it becomes literal, physical hostage. You become a literal physical hostage to your own size and body. And shame. It's really about shame.
Well, I was able to tune into that feeling of just stress around dieting. You know how stressed out I get from just trying to, today I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to eat this and this. And then the whole stress around, what time is it? I don't feel good now. I need to lie down. I don't, I can't think, but I can't eat because I'm not supposed to eat, and then eating, and then feeling bad because I ate. And then...
How much of that anxiety around depriving yourself, how much of that is connected to why you end up binging?
Well, it's all connected, I think, because part of it is almost a need to kind of take care of myself because I'm starving myself, and then the other part is I need to be punished. I don't deserve to be thin. I screwed up.
Yeah, I failed. I might as well.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fat anyways. I might as well just eat what I can. Maybe I'll try to fix it later.
Yeah, because there's a part of me that the reason I pick up the food to begin with is because I'm hungry. But I had no clue that's why, and, to take care, to feed myself. But then as soon as I do, I feel, that horrible sense of remorse because I actually did it.
Yeah. So if you recognize, so part of the problem here, Heather, is when dieters in particular, dieters and restrictors, set in their mind, I'm only going to eat so much. I'm only going to eat, but their decisions around that have nothing to do with the body. Has to do with some concept of starving yourself. And then the body actually has these physical needs for food. Then you're set up to feel bad when you're hungry, when you eat out of hunger. You're setting yourself up by this preconceived concept of I'll only eat at this time and this much. Again, when you actually eat, when you're hungry, you're made to think you've done something wrong. Did you really do something wrong by eating when you actually felt physical hunger?
No. What I did wrong was in my mind,
well, it was in where things went wrong was actually believing you should starve yourself even if you're hungry, right? Should you feel bad if you eat when you're hungry? Well, no, but what should feel bad is the idea that you shouldn't eat when you're hungry. That's horrible, right? That's cruel. Does that make sense? No one questions their beliefs of starvation. You should starve yourself. You should only eat twice a day, and you should only eat 250 calories twice a day. So you can have that belief, not seeing it's cruel, and then when you try to live it and you cannot do it because it's cruel and it's inhumane and your body needs more food, should you feel bad or should the restriction feel bad?
It's almost like you're looking at it as a whole, not you, but the person is looking at it backwards instead of. Well, for me.
No, I totally get it. No.
It's like the way to heal myself is to be loving, and you can't love yourself if you feel like you're not worthy enough to be loved because you're fat. So you feel like you have to go on this diet.
Yeah.
But really, the only way to fix it is to be
loving
or kind, and then
unconditionally.
You're really in touch with your, but you also have to be in touch with the fact that because in the beginning, all this time, really, I had that needed time to be able to kind of get my brain around, what is enough and what's normal, because I really had no concept of, when I was hungry or when,
Yeah. Well, it's so hard to do that when you believe you should be starving yourself, right? Because if you eat, even if you're hungry, you've done something wrong. So that's why it's so hard to even talk about the hunger scale when people still have this desperate need to be thinner or to lose weight. It's just like, how are we going to do this when your thoughts around eating is full of shame and guilt constantly? It's like what you just said was so on target. So true. You really have to be really loving with yourself no matter what. Even if you're 450 pounds, even if you're 400 pounds, even if you really have to be loving and give it grace and compassion no matter what size you are. Doesn't matter. This is how you're going to eat, even if you lost 200 pounds, Heather. Are you hungry? Okay, well then eat. Or if you're not hungry, you need to focus on other things. Like you said, if I'm not hungry, is it loving to eat? No, it's not. It's actually really harmful, damaging. It hurts. I feel like shit. Well, then what do you need to do? Well, I need to look at what I'm stressing over. I need to look at this and resolve it. I'm not, and that's the part I think too, that when you're given a diet, you don't address those things because it's not about addressing your emotions. It's about restricting food. So when you're stressed out and want to eat, it's basically the diet that's regulating you, not your actual kind of a willingness to look at the actual stress trigger. When we're eating to hunger, then when these stress triggers come up, right? And you're not hungry, it's not, I'm not going to eat because I want to diet and want to lose weight. It's, I'm not going to eat because I'm not hungry, and I need to look at the stress and resolve it. Yeah. Develop a sense of what life is like with reality going on right now. Again, a diet gives you this artificial sense of control. So then eventually what happens is that stress, as it's not tended to, as you're kind of pushing it away and repressing it, is it eventually comes out. And guess what you're going to do? You're going to eat. Usually it comes out for people, I've lost 20 pounds, now I can eat. So all that bottled up stress blows up in terms of food. Does that sound like your history? Sound familiar?
I think just being on a diet is so stressful that any other kind of stress
is magnified.
Is magnified because you're already stressed out. So
totally.
Anything else just kind of throws you over the makes people think that you just can't handle anything because you're already stressed. Like the normal person.
You got it.
Stressed at work, that would be just a normal thing. But because I'm already stressed out by the fact that I can't eat all day.
Yeah, and you're hungry.
That, and Yeah, and I have to monitor that because I'm not, that takes all of your time. That takes all of your emotional.
Oh, it does everything.
I don't know what the word is. It takes
everything. Well,
everything you got.
Do you remember when we first started? Yeah, well, you remember when we first started talking, and I described you in like our first or second session, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how psychologically we are all human beings are wired to it's called Maslow's hierarchy, and it's been studied. It's basically the foundation of psychology and human behavior, like what drives human behavior. And what he found is that humans are driven to fulfill their foundational survival needs before anything. So the fundamental psychological needs we are wired to want to secure start with food and water, period. And if those are not secure, like if you don't have a job, you can't pay for food, you can't get food, food isn't available, you're going to obsess about it. It's highly inflammatory. It's like super stressful, right? So when you're like, Robin, when I'm dieting, not only am I super stressed about that, but it's like makes me highly volatile, really short-tempered with everything, because I'm so like the stress is so magnified because I'm stressed about food. That is scientific truth right there, because of how our wiring works. So when your food is, and they've studied it, when you have a perception, because it's perceived famine that is so triggering to our psyche, and these mechanisms that we all have, me, you, and just because I'm thinner doesn't mean I don't have that mechanism. That's why a lot of people who watch my YouTube videos are like, what does she know? Well, it has nothing to do with body fat. This is a hardwired mechanism. That's why I binge ate, the same as you. It becomes very predictable because it's a predictable human survival mechanism around food, whether you're thin or 450 pounds or 500 pounds. It's the same psychological mechanism. And for some reason, people think, well, if you're overweight, you need to turn that off, right? Like you should just starve yourself and not have these impulses, as if you're going to rewire and like millennia of evolution in our psyche around making sure our food is safe. No, it doesn't go away just because you're 200 pounds overweight. It's still there in your brain. You can't get rid of that brain. That brain is still there. Just because you have all this weight does not mean your brain is different. Your brain is the same as mine in terms of how we respond to famine, deprivation. So the real triggering stress response in famine mode is deprivation. Deprivation means that someone is taking your food away from you. So what it triggers is self-defense. When there's famine, that's very different, right? Because it's not being taken from you. It just doesn't exist. Your response to famine would be very different, don't you agree, than if someone said, someone's going to come get all of your food and it's going to be removed on Monday.
Yeah.
You're going to hoard, you're going to binge, you're going to do all sorts of stuff if you believe someone's going to take your food or if it's being withheld from you. Like being starved. Versus we have famine, no one has food, we need to ration. That's very different psychologically, different psychology than everybody's eating and I'm not. Everybody's eating and I am starving. You feel the difference? So your response to that has nothing to do with your weight. I have the same response. My 13-year-old daughter has that response. Every human being is going to have that same psychological response to being like true deprivation. You go into self-defense. And so you've been living in self-defense for a long time around food. And why do you think? It's this incessant desire to be thinner that promotes starvation. And we could say, well, not all diets are as extreme, but you're the one who took it to the extreme because you felt so bad about yourself. So the worse someone feels about their weight, the more intense they are around that famine. The more intense you are around that famine and deprivation, the more intense you're going to be on the binge side of it, the hoarding side. So when they look at binge eating disorder, all the science is showing it's so based around shame. Shame about your weight, shame about food, shame about life. Just you feel you're basically cruel to yourself. Cruel, mean and cruel. Right?
Yeah.
And you're the one who has been imposing this concept of starvation, not connecting the dots to why you're binging because of it, right? That link between I'm starving myself, I should starve, I hate my weight, my body's like ruining my life, I'm a horrible person, I should starve to feel better about it. But then the link between the starving yourself and the actual impulsiveness to binge when you feel deprived. Not just deprived, but when you just feel hungry because you feel like you've done something wrong.
God, who would have thought that answer to my problem at work found
Right? No, it's true. I mean, this is like goes back down to but that's not where it starts. Where it starts is you being kind to yourself. That is where this started. You had to go in and say, I can't be cruel anymore. I need to be kind and loving. So it's like the moment you said, I can either eat and feel like total shit and nothing get done, or I just take a break and nothing gets done. Which one is the kinder thing to do? Well, just go take a nap. Be kind.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like the clouds have parted a little bit for you. So the sun is shining.
Yeah.
Is it coming together? At least sounds like it today.
Yeah, today is a good day.
Today it's making sense.
Who knows what tomorrow will bring?
Well, the moment you feel bad about your weight, the moment you start feeling bad about it, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I'm going to start eating. I'm going to start.
Well, the pressure builds. Right, the pressure. Let's do it step by step. So if you feel bad about your weight, you know that feeling very well. Pressure goes up, doesn't it? It's like all of a sudden there's pressure. I got to do something. I got to fix it. I need to. And then what happens next is I'm not going to eat.
It's so funny how I have all this pressure and I basically don't do much of anything, but in my head, it's like I have to, with all the stuff in my head that's telling me I have to do something, I have to do something. You would think that, it didn't occur to me that if I stop thinking I have to do so much, then I'll actually get more done.
Mm-hmm.
It's that feeling,
the pressure.
That feeling of pressure of having to be perfect all the time, or having to do everything perfectly all the time. Or not even perfect, but just the way that it,
Well, the perfectness actually makes a lot of sense because that's how it's really a reflection of how bad you feel and how desperate you want to feel better. So then, because it's so overwhelming, that pressure feels overwhelming, doesn't it? Can you see then? Yeah, can you see then you have to be perfect? That perfectionism, what you're describing again, these are mechanisms of survival. Anybody with that type of intense shame and desire to feel better, right? It's intense. It's like, think of it like volume. Shame has a volume. And yours is turned all the way up. So it is intense. That if you want to feel better, you're not going to be lax about it. You're going to be like, it has to be perfect. Does that make sense? That perfectionism. But the sucky thing about it is when you're trying to be perfect around starving yourself, that's like, again, that goes against that psychological wiring that we all have installed in our brains to want to feel good and safe with food. So that perfectionism sets you up to feel shame at a very little slight deviation, doesn't it? Just the slightest move from that desire to, from your perfect starving creates catastrophe. It's ruined, right? Because it has to be perfect. And in the feeling I used to get was, well, there's no point today because I'm not going to be thinner today. I'm not going to lose weight today. What's the point? So that's that. It's catastrophized. So if you know ahead of time, you know what, I'm going to try this again tomorrow. What happens today? You might as well eat. Because you're not going to get it tomorrow. So I'm not just going to have a cookie. Why would I just eat one cookie? I'm going to eat all 20 of them because I'm not going to get any more tomorrow. So do you see that you're forecasting that deprivation? I'm going to be deprived. So if it was a famine, meaning there's famine, would you be eating it all at once? You would be rationing it. Very different.
Yeah.
So that feeling of deprivation, that emotion of feeling deprived, you need to recognize that as part of the problem too. Constant sense of pressure to do something. And that feeling too of doing something comes with it has to be done now. Do something now. It's very, very intense. So would you describe it that way?
I'm so used to feeling that way. It doesn't even it feels normal to feel that way. So.
Well, sure, but is it my description accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like now. So the moment you're like, no, when you say, I'm just going to be kind to myself, do you see how that depressurizes it all? It doesn't have to be fixed right now. Nothing has to change right now. Nothing's wrong right now. Are you hungry? Well, then you should eat. Should you feel bad about it? No. How much do you really need to eat? So by taking the weight, now over the course of the last, since we talked on Friday, it's Monday, over the course of the last 3 days, have you tried to completely remove, and that was something I talked to, remove your weight from your mind? Just remove the pressure to be thinner. Just remove it.
I tried. I didn't have any luck with it because...
But for some reason you are now. What you're describing to me sounds like someone who doesn't have pressure to lose weight right now. Maybe have you gone back to, I don't need to worry about it, my body will take care of it. Have you gone back to that?
It's more like I just keep repeating myself, what's the kindest thing I can do for myself? Because my body, when I did that meditation, I could feel how everything just hurt, especially my digestive system, like from my stomach all the way down. It's like it just hurts, and it's like it just hurts. Everything, all of my organs just hurt.
Totally.
And so it's more like I'm not looking at it like, I'm just looking at it as how can I stop punishing? I don't know. When I say be kind to myself, because when I woke up yesterday morning, I was probably thinking about, how much I hurt. Oh God, I've got to diet. And I'm like, I can't. This is so stressful. Like, and that's when it hit me. Just be kind to yourself. What's the kindest thing you can do? Can you just stop punishing yourself? And so I went and I got something to eat because I was hungry, and it was good. It was, I just had yogurt and an apple, and it, it wasn't, because I've been eating so much salty stuff and fast food, and it just felt good to eat something. Even if I'm brainwashed, it felt healthy. I was like, okay, this is good for my body, and I can just eat this, and
it gets rid of that hunger.
And then later, I got hungry again, and I thought, okay, and I started to get stressed out because I just eaten, and then I thought, what's the kindest thing I can do for myself? So I went and I got some salmon and some vegetables, and I ate that.
Good.
And I was okay. And then later on, in the evening, I wanted some coffee because so I got coffee. But I didn't binge, and I didn't go off the deep end because I had coffee with milk,
So you weren't criticizing yourself. You weren't judging yourself.
I was regulating it by
You're recognizing that you're cruel to yourself, and then oftentimes it projects out and you see it. I don't know. I feel like I understand what you're saying. I'm connecting to what you're saying.
I'm not sure. We don't know what it means. I just felt like, I felt like I've got to stop. Like, I feel like I abuse myself in many ways, and
yes,
and, it's more of, I need to stop being so judgmental of myself, and so just
giving it grace.
If I just,
have you given?
I just look at it from, I may not know when I'm hungry, but I know when I'm hurt. And I know what my body, like, I know that eating apples and yogurt is probably the best thing for me to do right now.
Yeah.
Instead of other foods, because it's, it's just, I don't know, it's like a little shift in my thinking, but I'm really tired too, and my body's really heavy because of the swelling, and I need to go to the pool, and when I go to the pool, it just really helps. And, but I'm still tired because I got all this, toxins in my body, and I stored in all the fat cells, and the lymph system not working properly. It's not removing everything like it's supposed to. So I feel tired all the time. I guess I have to put me first, my health first, my job second.
And everybody else's opinion is irrelevant. Yeah, that's important too, because you're the only one that really understands what you're going through. So someone else can have an opinion about it, right? God, it's what I'm hearing right now, Heather, is that you have given this grace. Remember when I was explaining what is grace? It's like room. Give it space. Give it breathing room. You got to have compassion for yourself. Remember when I said you kind of have to forgive how this has happened. Forgive it all.
Yeah.
Forgive how this has happened. It's understandable how you got here. Forgive it. You don't have to keep on doing it. You can be kind. Be kind to yourself. Freaking awesome.
Well, if I look at it from that perspective of being kind to myself, then that means that I can look to me for the answers and not other.
Well, because you're in the moment.
It means I put myself. It's almost like it's being selfish, but in a good way.
It's being self-aware. Being self-aware. That's not selfish. That's just being self-aware. Which is awesome. Selfish is like, I'm going to do this, and other people should do it for me. They need to accommodate to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I guess when I say, like, I have to make decisions for myself, and if other people want me to do things for them, and I don't know, like this whole friendship thing I have with these two ladies, like, it's just dysfunctional, and I don't know how that's connected. It's connected somehow. I think because I actually told them how I felt instead of, even if I acted, childish or inappropriate or overreacted, I still told them exactly. I let them know exactly how, that thing, I guess that thing that I'm always giving to me, I gave to someone else instead of just
holding it in.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a big shift for you to be able to express it, but also to recognize it too. Maybe you're recognizing that now. That's how you've been acting to yourself. And worse, actually. You were probably kind in comparison to them. Yeah. Right? You've unfriended yourself, right? Because of your weight.
Yeah.
And for the first time, you're like, you know what? Just... and now it's like, no, just because of this whole weight thing is understandable. I love it.
I don't know. Yeah, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. It's true. And that's part of the problem if you decide that, well, because of your weight, you're going to unfriend yourself again. Right? Imagine if you only are friending yourself if you lose weight. I'm only friends with myself if I eat clean. I'm only friends with myself if I starve appropriately. I'm only friends with myself if I eliminate all this crap food. How that's going to feel the moment you're a human being and you want a sandwich.
Yeah.
A panini with cheese. You know, how's it going to feel? Are you going to unfriend yourself because you want a panini?
No.
Right?
But I wouldn't get it unless I thought it was what I needed to eat.
That's the goal is that this is where you want to be very clear with yourself, because you've abused food and the relationship with food, that you have to be very clear around. If I'm hungry, if the body is hungry, it is telling me when to eat. I'm not going to tell it when to eat. The body tells me. And then if I'm aware I'm hungry, I get to have a choice around what I want to eat and what sounds good and what's going to feel good, right? And you can ask, what would be kind? Is it a panini? What's going to taste good? If the mouth goes, oh my God, that sounds so good. Well, then have it. But how much do you really need? Do you need to have 2 of them? Do you need even to have a whole one? Who knows? What if it's only 4 bites of the panini? And the body says, all right, we're good. What should you do? You spend $15 on a fucking panini. What should you do if you only need 4 bites?
Well, you tell me to throw it away, but I was going to put it in the refrigerator.
Well, it doesn't matter. You can do either. You can eat it when you're hungry again later. That gets exciting, right? Then you're like, oh my God, when I'm hungry again later, I can have 4 more bites if that's what it is. So letting the body tell you what to do with food. And that's where you do have to be honest with yourself. And just be friendly about it. I love that you're being kind and truthful. And you've got to be aware, if you are not hungry and you're justifying that food, you have to question why. Why are you unfriending the body? What did the body do? Why are you unfriending the body? Willfully abusing it. It hasn't done anything. That's so different.
I guess it gets back to that being abusive and feeling like I serve the, I don't know.
Well, what that comes down to is usually it comes down to how you're interpreting the environment, like an experience. Mm-hmm. And if you feel bad about some experience or environment, like a stress, like something that's causing stress, you feel bad about that. And in that moment, your way of like, well, for me to cover myself up and hide, I need to eat, but that is abusing the food or the body. So you have to decide, well, of course I'm having this experience that I'm perceiving as stressful. That does not entitle me to abuse the body. So I'm not going to do that ever again. So the stress, so you have to be able to see those moments. You have to slow those moments down. You just did this today. When you were wanting to eat because you were frustrated with something at work, and you, in your mind, said, well, I can either eat and feel like shit and not be kind to the body, or I can, which is not going to get anything done anyways, or I can be kind and maybe take a nap and come back at it later. Does that make sense? So that was a perfect example of you stopped yourself in that moment and said the food isn't going to solve anything. What's it doing? It's harming the body. And the body's not hungry. So not a choice. It's not because you're on a diet. You're not on a diet. That's the best part about this. You're not on a diet. This is what you would do, what you should be doing, whether you are thin or fat or anything in between, right? Doesn't matter, right? So doesn't matter if you were 150 pounds. If you're under stress, should you be eating? Or should you just focus in on what's going on? What am I needing to figure out? Where do I feel like I can't I don't understand it. Like, make sense? Like, what's going to actually resolve the issue? Food or resolving the issue? So this is,
I guess, it would make sense to go to the food if you're always on a diet.
Oh, totally. You're on a roll right now. You are so on it.
Well, it makes sense now,
Well, it's almost like you should be on this side videotaping yourself talking about it. Like, Heather, you like all of a sudden it's like, yeah, no duh. If you're on a fucking diet, you're going to want to go to the food. It gives you a great reason to eat because this shit sucks and I want to have my food. Oh shit, I failed the day. I'll just figure it out later. Restrict again tomorrow, No, it's like one way I describe it is you're juggling life, and in dieting is like a ball that's on fire. That's your juggling, right? And it's like, well, then life hands you you're juggling of like 8 balls. One of them's on fire, so that one you're always focusing on because it's burning you. And then life throws you a dagger to juggle too. Well, you can't focus on the diet if life is throwing you a dagger. So you throw the ball on fire away so you can figure out your life. Right? In that moment, you're like, I'm going to kind of overcompensate and eat because that ball of fire is going to come back in when I start my next diet. Could you visualize that? Like the juggling, ball on fire, dagger comes in, you got to throw the ball on fire away so you can focus on life stress. In the meantime, because you're starving yourself, you're shoving food in your face because you know that other ball on fire is going to come back, which is your diet.
Yeah. But you have to get it. You have to give up on the diet because you have to.
Yeah. You got it. But in the meantime, because you've been dieting, you're going to food to handle the dagger.
Right.
And then you're gaining weight, which means the ball on fire just got bigger, right? So think of it that way too, because now you're overeating, you are gaining weight, and the diet gets bigger. It gets bigger. It's like gets more fiery, right? It's more intense. It's taking over everything,
And on top of that, you have the extra weight that you wake up with the next day.
Totally.
But just thinks it even more and makes you feel even worse.
And worse. Yeah, it's like a terrible. And so how do you escape all this? You have to.
I moved to another state to get away from my family.
Right? It's add all that stuff. So in order to remove all this, the first thing we got to do is say you got to stop with the weight loss because your dieting is causing the problems with your food. So you have to just surrender. You have to surrender the weight issue to the body and give it to the body. It's not your business anymore.
Well, it's easy to do because, it's easy to do that because I know that if I just eat when it makes me feel physically better, I'm not going to have to worry about my weight.
No, and you don't have to juggle a ball on fire because you're not dieting either.
Yeah.
That's the key here. The only way to get rid of that ball on fire that is burning everything and torching it is to just surrender your weight to God, to the body. Let it just be its own thing so that you can just hone in on I'll eat when I'm hungry. I'm going to give myself grace. I am a human being. If I'm hungry, I should eat. And if it's an apple and Go-Gurt, awesome. If it's a taco, a taco. If it's a bowl of cereal, a bowl of cereal. Whatever it is, I want it to taste good and I don't want it to hurt. And so do you see how peaceful and calm that is? There's no pressure. There's no pressure. There's no pressure. No pressure. It's really just let the body do it. And it might take a couple years of just being relaxed. But even in the end now, as life throws you stress, you're at the point now where it's like, well, there is no diet. So food consumption is not going to do anything for you. And it's causing pain. So
the diet is not the answer. The diet is the problem.
It's actually it's actually magnified. It's like throwing gasoline on everything, right? So we remove all that, and now it's like, okay, there's no pressure. Learn what hunger feels like. Learn how it feels to just listen to it. It feels good. I mean, your body will start to feel really good. And it's not because you're dieting. It's because you're actually just eating when you're hungry and you're eating adequately. That's a really good word. Don't you agree? Adequate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not too little, and it's not too much. And it's gray. There's a gray zone. It's not perfect. There is no perfectness. It's just, well, when I'm hungry, it's appropriate. And I want to eat enough that it's kind. It's like how I would feed a child. How much do you really need? Do you need to be full and uncomfortable? One of the things that ways that I describe, Heather, the end point, because that's hard for a lot of people to figure out, especially when food does taste good and you're in a social environment. That end point, like how to know when to stop. Imagine that after your dinner or after you eat, you're going to have to go move furniture. How much do you really need to eat? Well, you need to have enough that you feel energized and you're comfortable, but you don't want to eat so much that you're burping and gassy and you're super uncomfortable and need to unbutton your pants or don't, you know what I'm saying? Lay down. You eat enough so that you could move furniture. You know, like, does that kind of give you a sense of it? And then, and no, the food will be there if you get hungry again. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. And you haven't done anything wrong if you eat it when you're hungry. Nothing's been wrong. Give it grace. Give it lenience. Give it space. And the only way to really have that space, what you're experiencing right now, and the kindness that you're giving yourself, is to take the whole pressure to lose weight and put it aside.
Yeah.
It's not your business anymore. That's got to feel good.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. As long as you're being truthful and honoring the body and it telling you what to do. The body is going to tell you when to eat and how much, and you need to do what you're told. Period. It's so easy. Have you noticed that? This is so much easier.
Yeah, because like this morning when I, was decided to take the nap and I thought I was going to eat the rest of the day. Well, when I woke up, I was hungry. I was like, oh my God, I'm hungry.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
That's why I didn't call you back. So I went down and I had something to eat before I called you back. That's what I was doing. And,
that's what I did. I had a banana with some peanut butter.
well, I had a protein shake. That's because I have like 5 jars of them.
Yeah.
So it's just to throw it in there. But still, I made some chicken this morning, and it's been in the refrigerator so long. When I pulled it out, it kind of smelled like it was going bad. And I was really hoping it wasn't, but I kind of knew it was. And when I fixed it, I was like, no, it's bad. So I just threw it away. But
Yeah. You could probably give it to your dog, or your cat. Do they eat chicken?
my cat won't eat anything but cat food. Very weird.
Huh. Awesome. Oh my God, Heather, this is like, stay in this space. Just stay right here. Don't do anything.
Okay.
Pressure. No, you're here. I think this is important because you're going to start feeling better. And what is going to bring back that sensation of, I have to lose more weight now? What's going to do it? Where you have to unfriend yourself and your body again. What is going to put you in that position? Is there anything that would...
Just any kind of expectation that I have to be thinner, like I'm going to have to go downtown in a couple of weeks to see my boss, which is hard for me physically, but honestly, if I'm not overeating, it's not going to be as stressful, because as long as I feel good and I'm not binging, I'll be able to walk without breathing hard, and I'll be able to walk. If I go to school every day, I'll be fine, as long as I'm...
Well, as long as you don't become an asshole to yourself and unfriend yourself.
Yeah. right now, like, I could probably go down, if I went to the pool today, I could probably go, it's a very short amount of time that I need, really, to get back up so I can function, but, so that's the kind of thing, when I have to go, like, when I have to be out in public for something, or,
okay, so you have to,
that should probably, you know, if I could maintain this way of thinking, you know, within a month, that probably wouldn't even bother me.
Well, it needs to just be the way you are all the time.
Right. Regardless, even if I'm not, I'm still
this size.
The worst is I could just not go. And it's not my actual site manager, tour manager.
You know, one thing I want you. Well, what I want you to really focus in on is when I love that you're meditating. I do think that do that again, but I want you to focus in on what is worth unfriending myself over, or my body. Who am I willing to unfriend me for?
That's really good.
You need to meditate on that.
That's really good.
It needs to sink in and lock into your permanent consciousness. That's why I asked the question. What's going to happen to where you're like, I'm unfriending myself and my body. I hate it. You know, and you know what's going to happen when you do that.
Well, when you look at it that way, it's like, it doesn't even matter that I have to get down. Like, why would I?
Yeah, your own love for yourself. Kindness.
Right.
Who is worth you being unkind to yourself for? Who? Who out there is worth you unfriending yourself for? I'm going to unfriend myself for you. Who?
Nobody.
Correct.
I mean, if they were going to fire me because I'm fat, they would have done it on time.
Is that worth unfriending yourself?
No, even if they did, I don't even like my job. So if they got rid of me, they'd probably just let me off, not fire me for being overweight. No, I have 6 months of money.
There you go.
Anyway.
So that I need you to meditate on that. That is your assignment between when we talk again and the next time. Besides, your body's going to tell you when to eat, and you're going to do what it says. You're going to let the body tell you what to do with food. You get to choose what you want. You get to be kind to the body as you do it too, right? I love that. So being honest with yourself, if the body is not hungry, I'm not going to unfriend my body and override it. I'm not going to do it. I have to deal with these social issues or whatever it is. I need to focus on it. I think about it. I need to take a break. Maybe I need to take a nap, come back to it, and resolve it. I'm not going to go eat and get nothing accomplished, just like I'm going to get nothing accomplished if I take a nap. So I might as well take a nap. I love that. That's a great example to go to. So there's that. But there's also, who am I? Am I ever going to be willingly and willfully cruel to myself and mean and horrible, right? And unfriend permanently myself for what? For what? For who? Who is it worth? Who's worth that? Nobody. Yeah, nobody on this planet is worth shaming yourself for. Not one person. And when it comes to these eating disorders and what's happened with your weight, no one really gets it. So you got to give them grace of just, they don't have a freaking clue. They can sit here and go, well, maybe you should do intermittent fasting and keto, and you should do the sugar-free and gluten-free and dairy-free. And you can just go, that's sweet. I'm not going to unfriend my life like that ever again. I'm not going to juggle 3 balls on fire. Not going to do it. You know?
Well, it's such a business. I didn't
realize, it's huge.
You know, how much of a business it is. Because I always looked at it, you know, I never thought about it.
Oh, you thought it was trustworthy. You thought you could trust the diet industry.
Yeah.
The
diet industry is kind of related to
the body shame?
Yeah. Well, the diet industry and the doctor industry is kind of related.
Oh, yeah. You're unhealthy. The insurance companies and the pharmaceuticals. Yeah, it is. It is, and that's where the history really started. was in after World War II. It's kind of amazing. But yeah, it's huge money, and women having shame about their weight makes them so much money. So if you just listen to your hunger, do you really need a diet? If you listen to the body, do you really need them to tell you when and how much to eat? No, you don't. And not only that, but if you give up, you unfriend, okay, you're going to unfriend the diet industry. What happens to all the shame? What happens to all the, I'm a horrible person because I had a piece of toast?
Goes away.
Yeah, because
you're coming at it from a different angle.
Yeah, you're not going to.
I read somewhere years ago that the body has the capability of regulating, the body can regulate its own weight within like 2 pounds. And I'm like, how's that possible?
Oh yeah, it does. Because of the whole endocrine system, to include, your hunger rhythms are guided by a lot of that. So if you just continue to eat when you're hungry and not judge the fact that it could be a couple bites, you just don't judge that. That's what it takes. That's what it takes, for whatever reason. And if you just be guided by that, eventually your body's going to get to its natural point where it doesn't require you diet to get to. It just requires you eat based on your body's when it's hungry.
That's simple.
It is, and I cannot tell you when I did this for myself, because before I was so perfectionistic around counting calories. I had measuring cups. I measured everything every single time I ate. I avoided restaurants. I did everything which is friggin' nuts, that I went to a counselor and she suggested I continue to do that. But to me, I was trying to get relief from it. I hated it. Anyways, when I recovered, when I came to this awareness that you're at right now, and it's like, I'm just going to eat when I'm hungry. I'll eat adequately. I don't want to be in pain. I'm done binging. I can't do it anymore. And I'm not going to feel bad about myself. It's not worth shame. I remember thinking, it's not like I'm stabbing little kittens in the eyeballs for fun. Okay, maybe that's worth shame. Okay, I'm eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'm not going to feel bad about that. And I'm just going to listen. And if all it takes is a half a sandwich, or even whatever it takes for me to feel satisfied, not full. I don't ever want to be full, because that to me is cruel. That's it. I'm done. And it was amazing to me that after I had lived in this space that you're in right now for a couple of weeks, how dumb diets seemed from that after the fact. Like, why? What a snake oil industry. Super useless. We have this body that tells us when to eat. It literally gives us a gauge on when to stop if we actually listen to it. We can have variety of food. When you go into dieting, you eliminate so much variety. So you get bored easily and you have cravings more often when you diet. It's just ridiculous. It's like, if you want a freaking taco, eat a taco. Just listen to the body and avoid painful. Eat as if you're about to go move furniture. You don't want to be uncomfortable. That's it.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and if you have emotional issues you're dealing with, it's not a food solution. A food solution isn't going to fix it. There should be no connect between a social or emotional stressor and food. Why would it just doesn't make sense either when you're not dieting, right? Why would you go to food if food isn't being deprived of her? There's no point to that.
Well, it's interesting how sometimes when I'm having an emotional crisis, I don't eat anything.
Yeah, well, that means it's real. That means it's a real crisis, not you're not right. That's usually the indication of like, no, you're like a family member died, versus I'm stressed because I'm pissed off that someone said this to me and I'm emotional and I feel like a victim. Those are like, that's different, right? You can see the difference. So when you're feeling sorry for yourself, that's when you typically eat. When you have an actual crisis that's really real, people don't eat. It's when you feel sorry for yourself. That poor me, this happened to me, I'm pissed, I want my food. It's like a fit.
Yeah.
That's different than real crisis. You know, like I've helped other people with this, with like binge eating disorder. I'll say, okay, what would happen if your kid got in a car wreck and died? Would you go out and binge? And the first thing they say is, no, I probably wouldn't be able to eat for days. I'm like, that's a real crisis. There's a big difference between that and poor me, I'm feeling sorry for myself. Meh, I want my food. That's very different. You'll find that as you observe some of your stressors, you're going to see that you're going to want to negotiate for food and unfriend your body in that moment. When you feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah,
and so,
I can see that.
Yeah, and so those moments you have to really question, why would I feel sorry for myself? What is it that I'm, is feeling sorry for myself, does it actually do anything? Does it change anything? Maybe my expectations were whacked out. Reality shows up. Maybe what I thought should happen was the problem, not what happened.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Having expectations of other people or how people should act.
Oh, totally. And then you're miserable.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yes,
All right.